Hey, folks, good morning. You hear the sexy voice? Good morning. John Kelly welcoming you back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach. Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Sitting down, round two, baby, with Dr. Leah Kaylor from the FBI. She is the sleep, and I'm going to add trauma expert
Yeah,
because as we
that's
found
true.
out last time, one kind of goes with the other. Like
Totally.
we got a chicken and an egg thing going on, and so she's their go to help their agents um, navigate trauma and sleep. And so we are so blessed and lucky to have her back for a second conversation. Look at you, rise and shine. Good morning. How are you, Leah?
Hi. Good morning, John. No, I'm definitely an early bird, so I love getting up and talking about my favorite topic, which is sleep.
Yeah, no doubt. And the only reason why is because presumably you got an excellent night's sleep.
I normally do. Like if I don't, it's very unusual. Yeah, I love sleeping. It's a favorite activity. Like I kind of have it down pat.
That's awesome. And we kind of before we hit record, you are off a 3 week hiatus in a foreign country.
Yes, yes, I went away. I every summer, well, for the most part, I do something really interesting. I get a chance to go to a new part of the world. And so this summer, I went to Italy and Greece for 3 weeks. So I am very grateful to have had the opportunity. And now I'm back in action.
And I'm assuming you brought your pillow with you.
I did. I brought my
Yes.
pillow, my eye mask. I have a sleeping hat. I have earplugs. You better believe.
There was no way you were not going to get a great night's sleep being away from your own bed for a few weeks.
Absolutely not. I don't let that happen.
That's awesome. Because you know what? We always do that. Like we bitch and moan that I sleep like shit when I'm away. All right, but what do you do to mitigate the fact that you know you're not going to be in your own bed?
For me, I
Yeah.
make extra space in my suitcase for my
Yeah.
pillow. I like a really, really flat pillow, and
Yeah.
like at every hotel, the ones that they offer you are just
Yeah. You,
massive
you get
and it'll just
suffocated.
give you a neck ache. Yeah. Also, I always, always, always bring my earplugs. The Loop Quiet 2s are the ones that I love and I travel with everywhere. I actually have a couple of pairs, so I
Yeah.
think those are fabulous. And I have a Monta sleep eye mask that just
Nice.
blocks out all of the light. So those are my few things that I always travel with. If I have a little extra room in my suitcase, I will also bring a sunrise alarm clock
Yeah.
because I think that that's really useful and helps me just wake up naturally instead of having an alarm blaring in my face. So those are the few things that I always travel with. But this particular vacation, Italy and Greece, especially Italy, it was very hot, lots and lots of walking and historical audio tours and things like that. So at the end of a long day that's hot with a lot of walking, you're just whooped.
Yeah. So
You just
you
want to
you
fall
might
face first into your
yeah,
bed.
regardless, you might just
Yeah,
pass out.
totally,
Oh my
totally.
God. Well, that's awesome. I that those are some places that I think I need to put on the list, right? And actually be intentional about getting there because I find myself, yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll do that. And then another year passes. So
Hmm.
I think it's time for me to buckle down and actually take some of my own advice. Last time we talked, God,
Yes.
we had we covered so many things, and you provided us with some really great like
Good.
beginning like things to get a handle on why. Right, we talked a little bit about the chicken or the egg, whether it's I can't sleep because of the trauma, or is the trauma the reason why, or is not getting sleep the reason why I still have the trauma that's unresolved and that whole vicious
Yeah.
cycle. Um, and then we started throwing around some ideas of monitoring and maybe watching our caffeine intake, especially
Hmm.
with the half life being 6 hours. Don't be down in coffee at 4 or 5 in the afternoon expecting to go to bed at 9.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and all that is like it seems like I think sometimes we forget that what we put in our bodies doesn't leave once it passes your lips.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
I'm done with my coffee. Right, but it's gonna hang around for a really long time. Um, and all that was like, I was like, okay, yeah, it's like you know it, but until somebody like lays it out for you sequentially, you go, oh, this is why I'm kind of off the rails a little bit and not calming myself before I go to bed.
Exactly. And when you talked about chicken and the egg,
Yeah.
kind of about like trauma and sleep, I think we could also say that about caffeine or about alcohol. Like if you're using alcohol to sleep, we know, yes, it will make you sleepy. It is a sedative, it is a depressant. However, we have tons of research out there to show that alcohol will, without a doubt, give you a super crap night's sleep. It's going to be very fragmented, it's going to be shallow. And so you're going to wake up the next morning not feeling as refreshed as you possibly could. And maybe the next night you also have a hard time falling asleep. So then
Mm.
maybe you go back to the bottle. So I think that there's going to be this chicken and the egg, and the same thing with caffeine. If we're, go ahead. Looks
Can
like
we
you want to
stay
say
with
something.
alcohol? Stay
We
because
can.
because you know what? Like realistically, that's that's the thing.
Yeah.
At least it was when I was drinking,
Hmm.
that you rationalized real easily.
Right.
Like, I'm just gonna have a couple to take the edge off. And it's not like in the movies where, this is dramatic. It's just I'm gonna take a I'm gonna watch TV and have a couple drinks or I'm gonna, you know, whatever. Is there is there any science behind having any amount of alcohol before you go to bed? Like, is there any science that says, like, how people maybe like there's a study out there that says like a glass of red wine a day is good for your heart? Like, I heard that, right? Like, I don't know if it's bullshit or not, but I heard that. Is there any science behind like a little an amaretto on the rocks, before you go to bed? Is completely, it's not going to disrupt your sleep. Is
So I know exactly what study you're referring to whenever it comes to the glass of wine. Whenever it comes to sleep and all the impacts and all the things that alcohol does to make sleep dysfunctional and not allowing it to do all the really important things that it needs to do at night.
yes,
To my knowledge, no, there is no research out there to show that alcohol is a good idea for sleep.
even in moderation.
Even in moderation, even I'm someone who I don't want to tell you no because then people get upset and they get kind of defiant, and like our little 2-year-old comes out and like wants to throw a tantrum. So
Right.
if you are going to have alcohol, maybe earlier in the day, maybe cutting it back as much as you possibly can. I get that taking something away from someone, if that is something that they've been going to and using for a period of time, just simply isn't going to work. Like we need to cut down, we need to have baby steps to get to a place of where we want to be. But to my knowledge, no, there is no research out there to show that, oh yeah, alcohol is beneficial. And everybody can anecdotally say that yes, alcohol will help you make you feel sleepy, and that's true. That's biologically what is happening. However, what it's actually doing to your sleep and your ability to get a good night's sleep just
Yeah,
simply,
there's some studies. Well, again, I don't, but let me pitch it to you
okay.
that it actually interrupts any potential REM sleep.
Yep.
And like that's what we're talking about when we're talking about like restorative.
Absolutely. So every stage of sleep has its own functions and how important each of them are. But REM sleep is going to be very important. It's going to be very important for perhaps taking what it is that you've learned during the day and putting that into your existing memory neural networks and integrating that and figuring out where that belongs so that you can start to use it. Um, so yeah, say for example that you're already an expert in, I don't know, firearms, but you recently learned something today about firearms that's really useful to you and something that you want to lock into your memory. Well, if you are going to be having alcohol this evening before bed as a way to wind down and help yourself fall asleep, the act of having alcohol does impact REM sleep. And if we are not getting that good REM sleep, the ability for you to remember that new important fact about firearms that you really want to lock in is going to be significantly less likely for your brain to be able to do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one really interesting, and this study is a little bit older now, is that they found, and this was more kind of about college students and
Right.
learning because that's their job, that's the only thing that they're doing. And it had college students learn information and then 3 days later have alcohol and see what that did to their memory. And even 3 days later, it still was impacting their memory and their ability to lock in that new information. And so I think that the more we're researching this and finding out that, like, oh, it's not just that night and the information from that day, those effects are much more widespread.
Yeah. With all that being said, it's amazing. I graduated college. Um, I have no, I
Go,
have
John
very
Kelly.
spotty recollection, spotty recollection of being in Vermont for 4 years. But yeah, that,
Well, maybe now we know why you don't even have recollections about it.
see, it's a blur. It's absolutely a blur. And see, so that thank you for putting that to rest because I know we're always all right. Well, I'm not going to get shit faced, Leah. I'm just
Well,
going to have a few drinks, and so that's going to be okay. No, no, you're doing yourself a disservice.
you're doing yourself a major disservice. And, I don't want to be that person that preaches abstinence, but if you want the
Well,
biggest possible
I'll
benefit
be that person.
for
Yeah,
your brain,
yeah,
that's
no,
where it is.
right. And again, so when we start looking at like what are some things I can do? Well, you can stop being an
Easy.
idiot, right? You can stop drinking coffee all day and wondering why you're still unable to go to bed.
Yeah, you're
And you
wired when it's
right,
time to lay
you're
down.
wired, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to be wired. You need to be um alert and attentful at work. But when it's time to go to bed, you're not doing yourself any favors. So be more intentional about your intake of caffeine and
Hmm.
and get that timing down. And then for God's sake, don't drink, you know, alcohol to go to bed.
And
Or even at like at dinner if you're going to be going to bed later on.
I think that they all feed into each other, right? Is like we're having alcohol to try to wind down. It's giving us a crap night's sleep. We're not getting the best possible quality rest that we can be. So we're waking up unrefreshed. So then we're guzzling coffee when we wake up and we're trying to caffeinate all day long to stay awake and alert to be able to do our jobs. But then we're wired. So then we're trying to find a way to wind down at the end of the night. So it's this cyclical thing where we're just one problem's causing another, that's causing another, and we just can't get out of this loop.
And on top of all that, we're not hydrating properly. So
Oh,
like
absolutely
our
not.
our organs are like dying from lack of hydration because alcohol is not, I don't care how much beer you drink, you're not, or alcohol, or how many drinks, you're not, that's not hydrating you.
Right, absolutely. And whenever we drink alcohol and caffeine, both of those are diuretics. Yeah, they're just not doing us any favors.
Right. So I like if we get our physiology right, like if we just get like some
Yeah,
basics right, I think that solves or it begins to change and move the needle in a really positive direction.
absolutely. And I know that this is what I'm asking people to do may be a very big change. It may be something that you're not used to. It may be something that you've been using as a crutch for a very long time. And that's why we're having this important conversation is, yeah, there may be people out there who hang on to a study like the 1 glass of red wine for cardiovascular health. To my knowledge, there's not a single study out there that talks about alcohol being beneficial for sleep and sleep quality and sleep duration. Um, because again, yes, it will help you fall asleep because it's a sedative, but that is very artificial sleep. It is not true restorative sleep.
And to kind of combine like, so we have been indoctrinated, I think that's a good word, to believing that the way we deal with trauma is to drink.
Yes,
And
and I think
so
that
this
that's a
is
huge problem in law enforcement.
right.
Yes.
So
First responders, yes.
yeah, so maybe it's like I really don't want to drink, but in my mind, that's going to help me. That's the way I've been brought up in this thing of ours to deal with a shitty day. Instead of exercising, instead of talking to somebody, instead of taking a cold shower, all these things that we know now that we should be doing to deal with
Hmm.
a tough day. Um, that wasn't in the playbook
Yeah.
years ago. And so I think, unfortunately, you got a bunch of people my age, into their late 50s,
Hmm.
that was their go-to.
Right.
And so we know so much more now. And that's why we want to start smacking people around and going, hey, stop doing the same dysfunctional behaviors. And you can
Right.
have really the quality of your life can improve exponentially. It's up to you.
Absolutely. And I think that we talk about alcohol and REM sleep. Okay, but now we also need to talk about trauma and REM sleep. And so REM is very important. REM stands for rapid eye movement, but it's very important for our emotional health and our mental health. And a good way to think about REM sleep is kind of like this emotional detox that the body is going through. Because there's so many things that come in through our senses all day long. Like we are just bombarded with information. And at night, our brain needs to figure out, okay, what's important, what's not important. But throughout the day, there are also emotional things that happen to us, whether that is something that is maybe a disagreement with a partner, or maybe a poor interaction with a supervisor. There's a lot of different things that will happen throughout the course of our day. And maybe it's not even a verbal interaction, but maybe it's trying to pick up on facial expressions or body language or things that maybe we think that we're really good at. And one of the things that sleep tells us, just let me go down a side road for a second,
Yeah.
is that the worse we are sleeping, the worse our ability is to pick up on social cues like that, of being able to determine, is this person upset with me? Is this person
Mm.
feeling good about me? And it's really interesting because one of the things, and this just really makes me laugh, is that we don't know that when we are impaired. So we might think that we're doing just fine and we're not having any issues, but the research literally tells us that when you are not getting good quality sleep, especially whenever it comes to REM and being able to read social cues, you're not doing so hot, but you don't realize that you're
You're
not doing
not
so
doing so
hot.
hot. So this is impacting our emotional intelligence as well.
Oh, 100%. And it's the way that you interact with the world around you, right? It's not just your kids or your partner or your the
Right.
person that you're doing your reports with. It could be, interacting with the public. Like there are just so many different interactions that you have all day, every day
Mhm.
that this could be seeping into.
Wow. All right. You know what? You just smacked me around a little bit there. I didn't. So you kind of think, I was thinking very, I guess, one dimensional, like that. Oh, it's impacting your health, like your physical well being. It's actually messing with your cognitive ability in social settings and your ability to be self-aware and
Yes,
pick up on the feelings and emotions of other people. So it's impacting directly your emotional intelligence as well.
exactly.
Holy smokes.
100%. And that was just a rabbit hole that I went down.
No,
But
but we don't even think about that. Like that there's another layer of dysfunction,
mhm,
not just internally, but with your mind, with your brain.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. And when I was kind of alluding to that and went off of that rabbit hole, what I wanted to tell you was whenever it comes to REM sleep, that's when we process things. That's when we, say for example, I think that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast have probably experienced some type of trauma in their life, whatever that they would experience and classify as like a personally upsetting or traumatic event. And whenever it comes to that, REM sleep is what helps us kind of strip the emotionality around that so that we can kind of have it just as a memory and something that happened to us and something that's part of our story, but not something that continues to bring up that emotion every single time. And so when we are sleeping and we're trying to get into the stages of REM sleep, but our adrenaline and our cortisol, our stress hormones, are too high, that's where we end up with very poor sleep and also getting into nightmares. So when we have a nightmare, that's the brain trying to process through something. And, maybe even if this traumatic event happened a long time ago, but today there was some type of trigger, whether you realize it or not, maybe a
Hmm.
sound, maybe a smell, just for a microsecond that comes in, your brain wants to work through that at night. And if your adrenaline and cortisol are too high, it's not going to be able to do that. It's going to not be able, it's kind of like a broken record. It wants to process, it's trying to process, and then our adrenaline and our cortisol are too high to be able to fulfill the needs of REM sleep. And so that's where we end up with nightmares. And I know that that is something that a lot of first responders struggle with. And that's something that I do a lot of work around, is helping people with nightmares and to get to a better place in processing through those.
So because I'm half a moron, don't let me.
Yes.
I want to segue into EMDR because
Okay.
I think that's the biohack, right? That's the fix for that, isn't it? I
One
think.
of the many things that we can do to help people, and that's, earlier you had mentioned that my specialties are trauma and sleep, and I'm
Yeah.
very lucky to, I want to say lucky, but those two go hand in hand, and so it
Yeah.
serves me well
Yeah.
in that I can help people, you can help people on the sleep end and try and figure out ways to help them relax and to hopefully, instead of being wired at night like we talked
Right.
about, or trying to wind down with alcohol, maybe replacing that with some other adaptive techniques so we can wind down appropriately. So hopefully maybe your adrenaline and cortisol are at a lower state. However, in the daytime, we can also do things like EMDR and brain spotting that can help work through some of that trauma during the daytime so that whenever night rolls around, the brain is a little bit more prepared. And also there are actually specific treatments for nightmares. So there's a lot of different ways that we can help what's happening at night and help people get a better night's sleep, because I think that that's something a lot of people don't know that they can do or know that that's an option for them.
This is
And I
new.
think it's
This is
important that
new.
we
This is
we
new
talk about it.
information. This is new
Th-
information,
This
Leah.
is new information to you
Yeah. And
and
if
to your
listen,
audience.
and if it's
Yes.
new information to me, we don't know about this stuff.
Yeah.
We just suck it up. We just we just deal with we just deal with shitty situations, and we don't think that it can improve. So we just get comfortable being really uncomfortable. It becomes our baseline.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I am early career still. And so I've been treating nightmares successfully since 2018, but I by no means came up with this treatment, and it's
No,
been
not
around for
saying that
much
you
longer than my
not saying
career.
that you did, but it's
Yeah.
so because we live in this vacuum. We just think things have to be the way they are. That
Yeah,
they
and someone needs to come and tell you otherwise.
right. So can I add or I want to ask you. So nightmares, what I would say personally with me, what accompanied them was grinding my teeth
Hmm.
and clenching my fists to the point when I wake up, I thought I have arthritis because
Yeah.
that's all part of it. Is it? I mean, that's a question, not a statement.
I absolutely believe that it's part of it, because what's happening is just your body is trying to process through, but there's this, I think, like push and pull and tug of, I know that I need to work through this, like the brain is trying to work through this, and yet I'm not ready to work through this. And I think that the clenching of the hands and the clenching of the teeth are kind of this psychological pushback against wanting to process. Or kind of that old saying, like gritting your teeth and bearing it, like
Yeah.
it's could be a piece of that as well.
Huh. And so it's actually manifesting itself
Physically.
physically.
Hmm.
Hmm. I don't grind my teeth anymore, Leah. So
That's
think
promising.
I worked some things.
Your dental hygienist will be very
Oh,
happy with you.
I got to get a filling because I cracked a tooth the other day. So maybe I'm still struggling with things, but I'm hopefully moving in the right direction, right?
Hmm.
Um, so like I don't know that there's anybody in this space that hasn't heard of EMDR. Like, right?
EMDR
It's
is
like
getting more and
you
more
hear about it,
trendy.
right? You hear
Yeah.
about it. especially, I've been doing the wellness conferences and I'm
Hmm.
here and there, and I'm around a lot of therapists and like-minded wellness type people. And so EMDR, what the hell is it? It's
So,
this magic, this voodoo thing that you do, right? What is it, man?
a lot of people who I've worked with like to call it magic. At the end of the day, it's all science, and I'm happy to
It
tell
is
you
magic.
what works and how it works in a very like nutshell high level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can do that. So EMDR, yes, is very trendy right now, and like you said, I'm very excited to hear that a lot of people are at least familiar with it or have at least heard that acronym. And when it comes down to it, though, the reality is that this was discovered back in the 1980s.
Hmm.
So it's been around for a very long time, and right now it's finally starting to gain a lot of traction, and it's something that I would say when I do any of my lectures and I ask the audience like, "Hey, who's heard about this?" I do end up getting a lot of hands raised. But whenever I ask about brain spotting, that's the new kid on the block, and we can talk about that one too.
Yes, please.
But when it comes to EMDR, yes, it's been around since the 1980s because the person who discovered this accidentally, her name was Francine Shapiro. And she was in school to become a mental health professional. And she got this diagnosis of cancer.
Hmm.
And as you can imagine, this is very upsetting for her.
Hmm.
She's feeling just, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? And she goes on this very infamous walk in the park. And she's walking in the park, and as she's walking, her eyes are moving back and forth as she's kind of scanning her visual field as she's walking. And she notices that she started out feeling really distressed. What am I going to do with this cancer diagnosis? What does this mean for my life? And as she goes on this walk and her eyes are bouncing back and forth, left and right across her visual field, that she finds that after this walk, she tends to feel a bit better.
Hmm.
And this is kind of puzzling to her, and she doesn't know why and what's going on. But she's in school to become a mental health professional. So she thinks, okay, if this worked for me, maybe there's something to this. Like, I need to investigate. I need to figure out what's happening. And so she brings people into her lab and she kind of tries to recreate what happened to her on her walk. And she asks people to think about something that's distressing or something that's upsetting to them. And what she does is she moves her fingers across their visual field, left and right, and asks them to think about what that distressing thing is. It is now evolved. It's a very manualized process. Anybody who learns EMDR kind of gets this handbook and they go through it step by step. But essentially, what Francine Shapiro was figuring out was as there's very fancy word bilateral stimulation or movement of the left and the right sides of the body, that there's there's something really, as you say, magical happening. So, just to kind of give a high level overview, what we believe is happening for the most part is the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. And as we are moving both sides of the body at the same time or getting that bilateral stimulation, whether that's through the moving of the eyes left and right, or another way that you can do it is having headphones on and having a tone play in each ear. So when you're having something happen on each side of the body, it's activating both hemispheres of the brain so that they can be both activated at the same time and they can communicate more effectively with each other. Also, when we're doing this and you're working with a therapist, you are in an environment that is much more relaxed, hopefully, in a place that feels hopefully calm and comforting for you. So it's a place where your adrenaline and cortisol hopefully shouldn't be too high. And so what we're asking you to do in a nutshell, essentially, is thinking about that traumatic event that happened to you. We're kind of asking you to rate it on a scale from 0 to 10. And then we're going back and forth with the eye movements. And maybe after like a minute or so of eye movements, the therapist jumps back in and kind of asks what's happening for you. And when I do EMDR, because I'm certified in EMDR and I'm certified in brain spotting, is a lot of times people will start with this memory. They can see it, they can hear it, they can smell it, they're back there. And as we are going through the eye movements or whatever type of bilateral stimulation we're going to use, in fact, I don't use eye movements. I prefer tappers. And basically, that's just kind of like a small little, almost like the size of a pebble in each hand. And I control them through a machine and they buzz left and right. And so that's another form of bilateral stimulation. And I would say that that's probably one of the most popular ways that we do bilateral stimulation whenever I talk to my other therapist friends. And it's simple and it's easy. And essentially, we let the tappers or the buzzers go back and forth. And maybe after a minute or so, we'll ask, hey, what's coming up for you? And as we continue to do this over and over again, and we ask you to kind of work with this memory and bring it up in your mind, people consistently tend to say, I'm having a hard time holding on to it. It's kind of like I'm holding sand in my hands, and the memory is the sand, and it's kind of just coming through my fingers. I'm having a hard time hanging on to it. So it's really truly incredible the
That's
way
a
that
good
it
thing.
works.
That's a
It
good
is a
thing.
good thing. It's a very good thing because at the end of the day, when EMDR is successful, and you may go for one session and that may not be enough, and that is perfectly fine. Like
Yeah.
it's not meant to be a one time only. Like people tend to feel better after 1 to 3 sessions, but whenever we're talking about first responders and law enforcement, y'all have seen the worst of the worst. Like what you see just on one day, you may see multiple things that are
Yeah.
very
It might
upsetting
be
and very traumatic.
the repetitive nature of it might
The
be.
repetitive nature, the cumulative nature, how it kind of just becomes very sticky and sticks onto
Yeah.
you. And so I would say that if you go for one session and you're like, well, that was weird and nothing happened, don't give
Yeah.
up on it. It
Yeah.
will, just like anything else, it will take a little bit of time, but sometimes people in their first session do have really great results and do tend to feel a
Mm.
lot better. But essentially what is happening is that we are helping the brain in a structured, quote unquote safe environment process through what it wasn't able to process through at the time in which that traumatic event happened.
Okay. And is there
That's a lot. I
no,
apologize. I
it's
hope that
not.
people,
No, what it just did was it piqued everybody's interest because now they'll
yes,
go Google the shit out of EMDR
as you should.
and find out more about it. Is am I right in saying that it can be used like just following an incident?
So EMDR can be used for lots of different things. So in our context right now, we're talking a lot about trauma. And because of my position and the nature of the population that I work with, I use it almost exclusively for trauma, but it can be used for lots and lots of different things. So I want to put that out there for folks. Like if you're having performance anxiety around a fit test or qualifying for your firearms, you can use it for that. There's lots of different ways that you can use EMDR. But at the same time, I would say one of the things that we kind of debate back and forth with myself and my other colleagues is that we as humans, whenever you experiencing something traumatic, so say for example, something traumatic happens to us today, we're our snow globe, as I like to say, is all shook up and we're having a hard time. That's normal. So we want to make sure that people know that when you go through something and it is traumatic or it's upsetting or it's distressing, it is normal to feel like that for a few days.
Hmm.
We also know that the brain and body know how to heal itself, and one of the ways that it does that is through sleep. So, I would say you could go have an EMDR session or a brain spotting session immediately afterwards, but you don't necessarily need to because the brain and body do know how to heal itself and it wants to heal itself. And we can allow it to do that and then kind of check in. How are we
Right.
doing the next day? How are we doing 2 days later? How are we doing 3 days later? And see how things come along because there's so much research to show whenever it comes to trauma, like it's widespread. It's happening everywhere. It doesn't matter what kind of occupation you have. Maybe it's domestic violence that you're experiencing, or maybe it's just something really upsetting that you kind of just stumble into and you walk into and it doesn't have anything to do with your job. Like people come across upsetting and traumatic things all
Yeah,
the time.
we haven't cornered the market on trauma.
No, you don't have that. You don't have the monopoly. Sorry, John
Right.
Kelly
Right.
and
Right.
company.
Yeah, we need to be reminded of that. That
Right.
fucking everybody
Yes.
gets exposed to trauma.
Everybody does. You guys have a disproportionate amount of trauma that you're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. However, everyone experiences trauma in some way, shape, or form across the lifespan. So, what I'm getting to is that, okay, tons and tons and tons of people are experiencing trauma. However, not every single person goes on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. So, why?
Because you're able to process it through sleep during that
The
REM period, right?
because well, I think that there's a bunch of different things that might be happening. I
Yeah.
think sleep is definitely part of the recipe, but the brain and the body, yes, with some time, and normally whenever we say time, it's usually several weeks to a month. People can bounce back. People, for the most part, are very resilient. They're very
Mm,
adaptable, and they will kind of get past that. So I would say whenever someone experiences something traumatic, and the first typically 3 days are, oh, I can't think about anything else.
mm,
This is all I see in my brain. We want to normalize that because that is the brain working through something that is very significant.
right. The other thing too, probably I would imagine is repeated exposure. I mean, I've got this thing, and indulge me for a second, if you
Okay.
will. Like, if I hear it's okay not to be okay one more time,
Yeah.
I'm gonna punch somebody in the fucking mouth, Leah.
Okay.
I don't, like, listen, I'm like this snail sliding across a razor blade, trying to balance myself. Um, like I think we've swung way too far from. So there was this world that I came up in, which was no emotion, suck it up. If this is bothering you, maybe you shouldn't be a cop. That was the world I came up in, and that
Yes.
the majority of us
Yeah.
have,
I'm
right?
sure
And
a lot of the
that's
listeners.
right, and that's not healthy. That's dysfunctional. It's not healthy to completely be void of emotion. Don't acknowledge it. Don't, and if you do, it's a liability.
Hmm.
And then I think the pendulum has swung so far to counteract that narrative. Now that if, well, I saw a butterfly and it lost its wing by a bird, and now I can't go. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, dial it in, my man. Like, get a hold of your shit. So, like, we can't be emotional messes, not incapable of dealing with trauma. That's our business.
Hmm.
So suck it up, like, deal with your shit. And so, like, I think a nice happy place in the middle is, Neil Gang and a bunch of other people that I love in this space say it's okay to be okay. Like, it's okay for you to be involved in something horrific,
Hmm.
do the work that you need to do
Yeah.
to be healthy, and drive on. Like, this job doesn't have to carve a rut in your soul. Like,
Hmm.
you have a vote. You have a say in the choices that you make and how you deal with the trauma that arrives. And I think this is another one of those things where you got me fucking going. This is one of those things where we've bought into the narrative that you can't do this job without it taking from you horribly. And I think that's bullshit. I think that if we have some awareness and we get exposed to stuff, I think it becomes our decision whether we're in that club or not. Like, I think you got a choice in saying, I'm going to do the healthy things that I know I need to do to mitigate the negative effects of the trauma that I've been exposed to. I love that narrative. I'm going to with the help of people like you, I'm going to navigate this and I'm going to come out stronger and better. Or there's this other narrative that is, you're a victim and nobody should see the things that you've seen, and they I think they come from a good place maybe, but I think that everybody loses when we adopt a victim mindset,
Hmm.
that somehow we're incapable of doing this. People have been doing this job since the beginning of the cavemen. There's
Sure.
been somebody enforcing the law and seeing really bad stuff,
Hmm.
right? And so I think that the way we don't become a victim is by listening and having people like you in our lives that gives us the skill sets and the tools that we need to be better,
Yeah.
because trauma is going to come.
Trauma absolutely will come. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't discriminate against age, race, gender, occupation, whatever. Like
Right.
at some point, you will experience something.
Yeah, I didn't just lose my mind on you, did I?
No,
Okay.
no, we're we're good. I think that I think it's important to have these conversations so people know that these tools are available to you. And then if you choose to use them, wonderful. If you don't, well,
And look what you said. If you choose, see, I think it comes down 100%. It's your, if you have PTS, it's your choice. You've made the decision not to deal with it. You don't have to join that you know you in my Neanderthal mind that makes 100% complete sense, especially in a day and an age where there's people like you and there's services and there's awareness. If you don't want to do the work and you want to stay fucked up, stay fucked up. Not my problem. Like accountability.
and one thing I'll say is that maybe people don't want to do the work because they're afraid. And so one thing I want to say about both EMDR and brain spotting is
Yes.
when I came to the FBI, I learned very quickly, before that I was at the VA, but even before that I was working in a community clinic. And in the community clinic, people are looking for services, they're looking for therapy, they want to talk. But whenever I got to the VA and then moving into law enforcement, I'm like, oh, you guys don't want to talk. Okay, I need to figure something else out.
Right.
And that's where EMDR came into my life and then eventually later brain spotting.
Do you know
Because
why we don't want to talk, Leah?
why?
Because of our shitty bosses. They're going to use it against us. They're going to put us in a category and they're going to take everything that we've worked for and they're going to chicane us. We were an asset before I opened my mouth. And after I opened my mouth, I was a liability. And that's the fear. It's not stigma. Nobody gives a shit about what you think of me. It's the punitive damages that will be inflicted upon me for saying that I'm struggling with a mental health problem. That's it, hon. And they don't give a shit. And so when we watch our friends that raise their hand and go, I need help, when we watch them get discarded, we go, yeah, that didn't work out well for John Kelly. I am not going to raise my hand and have this conversation. I'll suffer in silence. And that's the thing that burns my ass. If we can create an environment where bosses and those that have the power over the masses can acknowledge that that's actually, it took a lot of balls for you to say that you were struggling, and we're not going to bench you. We're going to get you the services and the help that you need so you can become better. Like when that's the narrative, and there are narratives like that in certain organizations, everybody's thriving. But
Absolutely.
more often than not, Leah, can I tell you, I travel the country, you travel the country. There's a price. There's a price to be paid for opening your mouth and saying, I need help, more often than not. And that's shitty.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I guess when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about from my own experience of being a psychologist and sitting in
Yeah.
that chair and people coming to me for help, not necessarily raising their hand and the way that you described it.
That's why I love that's why I love what you're doing, because your intro, the way I come see you is I'm having trouble sleeping.
Oh yeah, that's
So
normally what it is. And then it
that's
snowballs
perfect.
into everything else.
Yeah, that's perfect, because why are you going to see Dr. Kaylor? I'm having some trouble sleeping,
Yeah,
right?
nobody thinks twice about that.
Right. And I love that, because then you can, that's, I would argue more often than not, that's a symptom. And so
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a greater underlying problem. So now you're the gateway, you're the door opener, you're the person that allows me to get help for some things that I'm struggling with without showing my hand to command why I'm meeting with you.
And that's exactly how I stumbled into this was I knew that people weren't going to want to talk, and I decided that sleep was going to be my thing because that's what it was at the VA before I came to the bureau. And then yeah, actually whenever people come to me for sleep, just like what you said, normally it's like 9 times out of 10 underlying untreated anxiety, depression, trauma,
Right.
or just very poor lifestyle habits too, like we've talked
Right.
about.
and can I tell you, you're an angel. That
Thank you.
is, listen, you don't know, this community is so hungry for somebody to give a fuck about them, but they've they've got to present the help in a way that doesn't put them at risk of losing their job.
Hmm.
See, and that's what you do. That's what you do. Um,
Yeah.
I just thank you, because that's if more people, if more programs were available, that the initial way we walked through the door, what wasn't so damning,
Hmm.
more people would be healthier. More people would be dealing with their shit.
I would
Uh,
hope so. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that the way you have this set up is just, it's beautiful. It's the thing that's going to allow us to live. It's really
Yeah.
that it's really that impactful, and you know that. I just um fuck, man, you figured it out. You figured it out. And I know you don't think it's just I don't know, because I mean, you're in a bubble there
Hmm.
a little bit.
Yes.
It's when I mean to tell you, the looks, like, I look at people, they look at me, and we both know we're fucked up, but we're not going to say anything about it. It's, it's like, yeah, man, how you doing, brother? Good. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
And this solution that you're providing, um, it doesn't come at a cost, because up until this point, everything comes at a cost.
Hmm.
And you are making this an, a risk free. It's risk free to raise my hand and go talk to somebody like you.
Yes, I'm trying to make it very low bar because everybody, no matter who you are, can relate to having a crap night's sleep. It doesn't
Right.
matter.
I
Everybody
love
can
it.
relate to that.
I love it. It is the single most impactful thing that you have ever done.
Thanks.
It really, and I'm sure you've done a lot of stuff, but just from somebody that's been in this community for 30 years, like, we needed you a long time ago, and I'm so excited that you're here now for our brothers and sisters, because you're going to make their lives better.
Thanks. I sure hope so. And that's, kind of what I'm trying to set out to do is there Dr. Leah doesn't have enough hours in the day.
No, well, that's why you got the book,
That's
right?
why I got the
If
book.
sleep were a drug, right? Coming out in
Yes.
October.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have another conversation once
Yep.
that book comes out.
You for sure
Um,
can.
but before we get too far, can you talk to me about brain spotting? Because I have no
Yeah.
idea. I have no idea what that is. And I think that probably is another tool along
Yes,
the lines of EMDR that helps us,
it
right?
is. Yeah. So one thing I want to close off EMDR
Please.
with is that the way that, okay, let's just remember that the brain is still so incredibly mysterious. There's still so many things that we don't fully understand about the brain and that we're still working through and trying to understand.
Uh-huh.
But with Francine Shapiro and starting with the eye movements, and that's how she discovered EMDR, there's theories that EMDR and that eye movement is capitalizing off of the same eye movements that you would see in REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep.
Got you.
So just really interesting. Again, I think that, the brain is the most complex device in the entire universe, and there are several theories as to how EMDR works behind the scenes. And I think that that's important to point out because we're having this conversation about sleep too.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
no.
want to,
EMDR, rapid eye movement. It's like it's mimicking it, right?
yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's
cool.
one of the theories. Yes. So switching gears into brain spotting. So Dr. David Grand discovered brain spotting also accidentally. He used to be an EMDR trainer and he used to go all around the world and teach other mental health professionals how to do EMDR.
Gotcha.
And he found that not every person had a great experience. And he tried to change things a little bit. He tried to slow down the eye movements. He added some music that was going to be bilateral, so moving from one side to the other. So he tried to do a couple of different things to see will people respond better this way. And he has a great book. It's called Brain Spotting, and it's an easy read. It's very interesting, and I think now he even has an audio book on it. But the first chapter is about an ice skater named Karen. And Karen is getting ready for the Olympics, and they've been doing EMDR for about a year now. And the EMDR is for performance enhancement and like performance anxiety. You know, she's getting
Like
ready to go to the
visualizing
Olympics.
stuff and all that, or
Kind of. I think that she's just trying to work through anything that may be psychologically getting in the way of her performing as
or
best
like
as
the
she
stress
possibly
and
can.
anxiety of being on that stage and that spotlight.
Yes, I think that there's like
Ah,
several different elements that are coming into it that he's trying to just get her to a place
okay,
where she can perform at her optimal peak.
understood.
So they're doing EMDR and he's moving his fingers across her visual field and he's slowed down the eye movements. That's one of the things that he's working on. And so as he's moving across the visual field very slowly, he sees that in like one spot her eyes kind of what he says wobble. They kind of like do something strange and he's like, "All right, like this is weird. This is
Didn't
interesting.
see
Like
that coming.
right. Like, let's just see what happens here." So where her eyes wobble, he's like, "Okay, let's just stare at this space." And he just keeps his eyes there. He keeps his fingers there and he asks her to just keep keep her eyes right there and focus and kind of just see what happens. And they do this for 10 minutes
She
and
had a brain aneurysm and died. Is that the
no.
end of the story?
No, that is not the
Okay.
end of the story because that would be the end of the book. That would be the end
Oh
of
goodness. All right. Whew.
brain
It was a
spotting. No,
cliffhanger. Okay, so
that
she's
is not what happens.
she's focusing on that one spot where his fingers are.
Yes. And essentially it actually ends up being very anticlimactic. Well,
Oh,
let me say this. They both are kind of like, "Well, that was weird." And he kind
okay.
of asks her, "What was happening for you?" And what she says is there were lots of different flashes of things of like memories that were coming up for her, things that they had never worked on in therapy, like
Hmm.
her parents and her grandmother dying and um like all kinds of like family fights and things were just kind of like popping up in her mind, but moving very quickly through her mind's eye, if you will, like being
Yeah.
able to see them in her brain, like kind of on a movie screen. And they were kind of like, "Well, that was weird." And then the session ends and she goes to therapy, or excuse me, she goes to practice the next day. And this trick that she was having such a hard time with, I don't know, we're gonna call it the triple axel loop, she lands it and she never has a problem again.
Huh.
And so it's kind of like, well,
Like
maybe there's
what
something
was
to
yeah, what
this.
was that? It's so closely together. What yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And so Dr. David Grand is intrigued and he has lots of clients, but he also has a lot of clients who are fellow mental health professionals. So he's like, "Hey, will you humor me? Will you let me practice this on you and kind of see like what happens for you?" And so he starts to practice and he's moving his fingers across the visual field and he's seeing that as he asks someone to think about whatever it is that they're working on or a traumatic event or whatever the case may be, because I also want to be clear that brain spotting, while I'm talking about it today in the context of trauma, and that's most usually what I'm using it for because of the nature of my work, it can
Yeah.
be used again for a lot of different things. I mean, I would say even more broadly compared to EMDR. But when it comes to brain spotting, basically the what's happening is that we're asking someone to think about an event that they want to work on.
Oh,
And easy enough. So
yeah.
start thinking about that event. And then we ask them, and this may be easy for some people and it may not be easy for other people. And if it's not easy for you, that's okay. But we ask, where are you feeling that in your body? So maybe, oh, like I just feel like I'm having a pain in my chest, like my heart is so heavy, or oh my gosh, like my hands are feeling numb. Like, where are you feeling that in your body? And some people are able to get in touch with that easily. Some people can't. And if
Hmm.
you can't, that's okay. Your therapist knows what to do and they can figure that out for you.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
But what we ask is, okay, let's focus on that sensation. So we'll say it's the heaviness in the chest and in the heart area.
Okay.
And so what we'll ask the person to do is I say I'm kind of like an eye doctor and that I'll show you a couple different spots and what I want you to do is to, for this example, get in touch with that heart area. And I want you to tell me where that feels most intense. So I'll go all the way over to one side and I'll ask you to like look on completely all the way over to our one side. And I'll
Right.
say, "Okay, just check in with your heart." Then I'll go right in the center and then I'll move all the way over to our other side. And I'll just have the person check in. And again, you would think, "Well, how the hell do I know how my heart's feeling?" But really, when you get in touch with yourself, a lot of people are like, "Oh, yep, yeah, it's right over here. I definitely feel it over here."
Hmm.
And it's very interesting. And then what we'll do is kind of fine tune it. So we'll move very slowly across the visual field and just asking you to get in touch with your heart area again. And normally people will be like, "Oh, yep, maybe a little bit to the left. Yep, that's where it is." Again,
Hmm.
it's strange to hear about it until you actually give it a try. And
Yeah.
then we'll move our fingers up and down the visual field as well to kind of fine tune it even more. And again, just asking the person to get in touch with that bodily sensation. And we really fine tune it down into one spot. And what I'm describing to you is very, very basic brain spotting 101. There are more tips and tricks and tools that a therapist has up their sleeve
Right.
if they take more trainings. But that is essentially how we find a brain spot. And then brain spotting, like I do live demos all the time.
Yeah.
And it's super boring as a demo because what I ask you to do is just to stare at that spot that we found
Right.
and to let the brain do what it needs to do. Now, one piece of
So can
this,
I, John Kelly
yes,
question?
yes,
So what you're doing is you're guiding that individual to that point
yes.
where all those images and things on a, like are on a carousel that are flashing. You're trying to get them to that point.
Yes, we're trying to get them to that
Ah,
point. And so the way in which we know that that's happening. So let me back up a little bit and say that I'm going to do a little example with you, but I'm not going to make you tell me the answer. So what
okay.
I want you to do is think about the best gift that you've ever gotten. Maybe it was anniversary, maybe it was from one of your kids, maybe it was a holiday gift. So you don't
Okay.
have to tell me the answer, but I'm watching you as a therapist. Did you notice what your eyes did?
I didn't, but I started smiling.
Okay, well, your eyes went up into the corner.
Okay.
That's where they went. When I first finished that question, your eyes immediately went up there.
Okay.
And what we believe is happening, again, the brain is super mysterious. Your eyeballs are an outgrowth of the brain. Weird and gross to kind of think about, but your eyes are kind of an outward manifestation of the brain. And so, what we believe is happening is that your brain has a lot of, if you will, file folders, and it has file folders for memories about gifts. And so, what I asked your brain to do was I gave it a task like, hey, go look in the gift file folder.
Right.
And now I know where yours is held, is it's up into the corner.
Okay.
And so as the eyes are moving on the outside, that's telling me that the brain is on the inside searching and it's looking for this gift file folder to go through and to look through. And so that is where that particular memory is held. But just know that we have file folders for
Mm,
hundreds of thousands of millions of memories. And so that's how brain spotting kind of capitalizes, is that we are, as we are moving across the visual field and we're trying to figure that out and we're working with the body sensation together with the therapist, you find where that file folder is. For some people, it comes super naturally. Like I have some clients who can do it on their own, and that's a gift. And for other people, they need a little bit of help finding it. But either
right.
way, the therapist knows how to do it. And so I think that it's just incredible the way that the brain works and how we've kind of accidentally discovered this and capitalized upon it. But one thing I want to mention too is one piece of brain spotting is normally we will give the client a pair of bone conductors or headphones, whatever, it doesn't matter, as long as they can still hear the therapist.
Yeah.
And we're putting very soothing, slow bilateral music. And
Uh-huh.
I can link it for free. We can put it in the show notes. And the reason why we're doing that is that very slow movement of the music from ear to ear. And it really, you're only getting the benefit when it is on kind of headphones or something that you're getting it from ear to ear. Because if you play it out loud, yes, it's nice and soothing and it sounds lovely, but you're not getting that bilateral movement. And that
Sure.
movement is kind of like it's activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. But in the most basic sense, it's kind of like rocking a baby to sleep. It's very
Oh,
soothing, it's very relaxing for the nervous system. So, while we might be working on a trauma, we also have this music in the background that's trying to calm the nervous system and try to calm us down and relax us. Because what often gets in the way of us being able to process through trauma is that adrenaline and that cortisol being so high that we can't process successfully.
right.
So I know I'm throwing a ton of information out at
You
you.
are, and that's great because we're like sponges. We
Yes.
that's it is so and like with everything that you say, I like a couple things popped into my head.
Okay.
Like, when we do interviews and interrogations
Yeah.
and we ask
Yes,
a
I hear
question,
this.
right? I don't recall what it is, but if I go up and to the right, I'm accessing something that actually occurred. If I go in a different direction with my eyes, that's me fabricating. That's me trying to make something up that, like, for the first time, and that's very telling for the investigator. When we're doing these interviews, right?
Yeah, a lot of people like to bring this up whenever we talk about brain spotting and trying to find the spot with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yes, people love to talk about that.
Oh, that's a thing?
I can't speak to the veracity of that necessarily. What I do know is how to help you find a brain spot.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Oh my God. That's super. Like, now, is that something? Are there a lot of people, um, therapists and people in this space that are helping, that are familiar with that? Is that like now becoming, how EMDR was a little bit on the outskirts, and then it became commonplace in this wellness space? Is brain spotting still out there, or is it working its way into being something, another modality that is widely accepted?
The way that I like to think about brain spotting right here, right now, is that it's kind of like EMDR's younger, cooler cousin. That's the way I
Oh,
like to think about it
okay.
because it did develop out of EMDR and we
Oh,
just kind of
okay.
added some various different elements. I would say the amount of practitioners who offer EMDR compared to the amount of practitioners who offer brain spotting, I'm sure that there's a disparity there just because, like I said, even though people don't realize it, EMDR has been around since 1980s
Yeah.
and it's
And
only gaining a lot of traction now. And so I'm hoping that more people discover brain spotting and they get on board because given the choice between the two, 9 times out of 10, I pick brain spotting because as a therapist, I have a lot more control over what's happening. I can change things in real time. And this is kind of getting to a higher level that the client doesn't necessarily need to know. But for me, I feel like I have a lot more control, especially if someone starts to get kind of overwhelmed, which
mm,
isn't unusual, especially if we're working through something that's traumatic for the person.
sure.
And so with brain spotting, I just feel like I have more control and I can kind of slow it down a little bit. I can almost like put the brakes on where we're still processing, we're still getting through, we're making really good work and really good progress, but it doesn't have to be so in your face, if you
Mm,
will.
uh-huh.
But one of the things I want to mention, and I talked about this with the ice skater, Karen, how she had all these flashes of memories. Everyone's brain spotting experience will be different. And I would say, like, no two sessions are the same. So when it comes to brain spotting, you may see things in your mind like you're watching a movie on a movie screen. You may hear things like whenever I do brain spotting, sometimes I hear like songs that are maybe trying to give me a message or something important to me.
Mm,
You may feel things in your body. For me, that's very much how my brain spotting shows up, and that, like, oh, I'm getting a tightness in my jaw. Like, what is this? What's happening? So your body is processing in a lot of different ways. And then you may also experience a little bit of movement. So the very first time that I was ever a brain spotting client, because when you go away to learn how to do this
yeah.
modality, you have to practice with a fellow therapist and you have to trade. So you practice as a therapist and you practice as the client. So my first time ever doing brain spotting, I'm working with this person who's also brand new, their first time. And I'm like, hey, I think maybe, I don't mean to be a jerk, but maybe we need to call the coach over because I don't think anything's happening. Meanwhile, my hand just starts doing this and I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. So you may even experience some
Huh.
movement like this, like twitching that I had in my hand and my arm. And that told me, like, okay, Leah, like, you may not realize it, but the body is processing through something that needs to be processed through. So I just want to put that out there that everybody's brain spotting experience is very different, and some people are very visual, and so it's just it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just how individual and unique we are, and how our body and brain to prefer to respond to and to process through things.
Wow. That's
It's
awesome.
very cool. It's
Yeah,
super
it
cool.
sounds, listen, that's the thing, right? Is that I think when you say therapy or getting help, I I think our default is this really weird, uncomfortable talk. I have to talk about everything. And
Yes.
that's not what we're doing.
And I think that that's what's so exciting about at least brain spotting, in my opinion, because with brain spotting, there's very little talking. There's one thing that we learn whenever we are in training, and it's an acronym called WAIT. Why am I talking? And that's for the therapist, and it's to remind us to get out of the way. Like once you've found the brain spot, once the person is staring at that brain spot, get out of the way, be
Mm,
quiet because the brain is processing at such an incredibly fast speed that just get out of the way.
mm.
Allow it to do
Let
what
the
it needs
brain
to
do what
do.
it's doing.
Yes.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I'd like to find out more about that. There's somebody I want to put you in touch with.
Okay.
He does a lot of work with first responders and veterans in processing trauma.
Cool.
And I think you would be I think you guys need to know each other. So I'm gonna his name's Dan Jarvis. He's pretty amazing.
Perfect.
And so when we go offline, I'll get you all that information.
Sounds
Um
good.
we are like we're into it, kid. I wanna
Yeah.
can we save some stuff for episode 3?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I want to get your book, If Sleep Were a Drug. Ooh, coming out in October.
Yes. Yes.
Exciting, so exciting.
So
Um,
exciting.
anything that you'd like to leave us with before we wrap?
So I'm trying to put more and more free content out there on the internet. So you can, everywhere my name is Dr. Leah Kaylor. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to put things on social media as far as YouTube and TikTok.
Yep,
And I have a website, drleahkaylor.com. And then if you want to reach out to me, it's info at drleahkaylor.com. And that's how you can send me a message.
that's awesome. Let me tell you, I we're 2 for 2, kid. I love sitting down with you.
This is so
It's
much
just
fun.
it's just so much information, and you're such a good egg. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing for us, and
Thank you.
I can't wait to. I know eventually we'll meet in person because
Oh, yeah.
that's the way the universe works. But until then, we will continue this. We're gonna have an episode 3, which I'm
Yeah.
gonna can't wait. I'm gonna read the book, get the book, and we're gonna discuss that. And I appreciate you putting all that information out for us today.
Oh, my
You
pleasure.
really are. You're a little angel for this thing of ours, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you and what you're putting out there for your audience because I think that sometimes they need slapped around a little bit.
Listen,
And you're the one to do it.
hugs are nice, Leah, but you really respond when somebody punches you in the mouth. And that's what I'll leave. That's what I'll leave our listeners with. Thanks, hon. And that is that, kid.
All right.
Oh.